Welcome to our webinar. Welcome, everybody. Another journey into urgency-based selling. Today's topic is surviving a tough budget with do-or-die accountability. And by the way, there'll be some time for questions at the end. The CEO's lament. I recently spoke to a CEO who said, "If I don't hit my budget this year, I'm toast." The board of directors of the company were unhappy with his performance. Years of good results left the company unprepared for a black swan event, like losing a major customer, the result of a merger, a bankruptcy, new leadership at the customer. And so sales were off. Now, what makes the budget challenging? A substantial increase over current results, and/or we may have lost one or more major customers. It requires us to sell change to handle conflict. And it probably requires a do-or-die commitment. Do-or-die match the effort, the energy, the creativity, and the passion to the objective at hand. Bold vision, bold behavior. What are some scenarios requiring a do-or-die commitment? These are conflict-laden situations. You're opening a new customer against an entrenched competitor. You're selling an existing customer new products and services they're not buying, and they're buying from an entrenched competitor. You want to increase your percentage of business. Let's say you sell cartons and you're splitting the business 50-50 with a competitor. You want to get to 75-25. You want to get a price increase. In general, anytime you want change, there's a conflict. And you're going to require, or you may require, a do-or-die approach. Now, a common dichotomy that's discussed in selling is the difference between customer service and selling or selling business development. And the question may come up, which, what do you want me to do with this customer? And this is called the tyranny of the or, right? To say it's like one or the other, because what you need is an and. You need customer service and selling business development. It may turn out that most of our interaction with a customer is customer service, but we need to do the business development when it's required. So customer service is more passive. The customer asks for something and we get it for them, a quote, a blueprint, a shipment, an order. Selling is proactive. It's persuading the customer to do something different. Now, a great mindset to do selling, proactive, is level 5 leadership, as discussed by Collins in Good to Great. He talks about this metaphor of the window and the mirror. When things go well, you look outside the window, you give credit to your team. When things don't go well, you hold a mirror up to your face and ask yourself, what could I have done differently? Now, in a dysfunctional company, dysfunctional leadership, a dysfunctional salesperson, those roles are reversed. What does that mean? Things go well, you look at the mirror and you pat yourself on the back. Things don't go well, outside the window and you ask yourself, who could I blame? Who could I blame for this? So the do-or-die approach, using the mirror properly, is the opposite of learned helplessness. Now, my standard for innovation is to try to test at least 2 new ideas a week, over 100 a year. Well, a lot of them don't make it into these webinars. We have over 160 best practices. The bad ones go in the garbage can. So do the values in your company support this kind of risk-taking and sales innovation? You know, as a culture, we tend to avoid change. We're in an election year, and The House of Representatives, as you know, is supposed to be the most responsive part of the federal government, but 98% get reelected. I remember seeing this many years ago and thinking that incumbency, the power of incumbency, it's hard to dislodge incumbents. That's why we need the do or die approach. Now, when we want to help a prospect to a better place, we should expect that they're going to grieve. People grieve change. The material on this slide comes from a book called On Death and Dying, and it talks about the grieving cycle. So when we first approach a prospect, they tell us, they're good. They don't need us. If we give them some evidence, they go into denial. If we give them a lot of information supporting our case, they get into closed mindset. And the real action in selling is using certain tools, what they don't know, to bring them around the horn to exploration and learning mindset, and ultimately to hope and to commitment and change. This is where the real action in selling takes place. And a powerful two-step approach is to lead with wisdom and then follow up with bold vision. So wisdom is not self-serving. The prospect can consume it without us, and it improves their well-being. And if they're not already predisposed to listen to our bold vision, it helps us earn the right to share the bold vision. Now, here are 4 transformational words. If you're not already acting on this premise, using these words, this could change your life. It could change your performance. What are the words? They're bold vision, bold behavior. So anytime you try to proactively sell, if you don't get the outcome you wish, you should ask yourself, was I bold enough in my vision? Was I bold enough in my behavior? An example. I had a sales agency for about 10 years. I sold packaging on a commission basis to food packers mostly. And 30 years ago, I hired a new CPA firm. They invited me in to see one of their proprietary products. I spent an hour with a presentation. The name partner, one of the name partners, was in the meeting. And after the presentation, I said to Bert, the name partner of the CPA firm, is this how you folks normally sell? And he said, yeah, it was pretty good, wasn't it? And I said, gee, it needed work, which prompted me to bold vision, bold behavior. I called him back a couple of weeks later. I said, Bert, you and your 6 partners need to hire me to teach you how to sell. So you probably know that most CPAs are pretty conservative. Let me take you into the meeting I had with the 3 named partners. They're on one side of the table, I'm on the other side. And in short form, these were the 4 key questions they asked me. So Andy, did you ever do this before for a CPA firm? No. Do you have some testimonials from companies with whom you've had success with the program you're proposing? No. Have you ever done this anywhere at any time for anybody? No. Do you have some curriculum to show us, to give us an idea what this would look like if we hire you? No. Then what makes you think you could do this? I said, I saw you present. To me, it was like, here, I can get you here, right? Well, they didn't know what to do with me. They did like a lot of my ideas. I was presenting some of the early primitive concepts that I now have in the program. So they set up a test. They were going to take me out on a sales call. My instructions were to my lips, listen, look, and debrief afterwards. I went out with 2 named partners on a prospecting call. For the first hour, I followed my instructions, and then I kind of couldn't take it anymore. So I raised my hand. The named partners melted. The owner they were trying to close, the manufacturing owner, said, gee, I wondered if you were ever going to say anything. I asked 2 questions, and I closed the sale. And about, a month later, the CPA firm hired me. And during the 6 months we worked together, their closing ratio went from 20% to 80%. Accounting Today is a trade publication for the accounting business, and they did a front page article describing some of the work sanitized version of the story I just told you, some of the work I did with the CPA firm. So the third question here for you to consider is, are you being bold enough in your behavior, keeping in mind you need to earn the right to the bold behavior? Now, bold vision, bold behavior often means out of the box thinking, going in a new direction. Here's an all-in story about commitment, taking a do or die approach. So I had a client, and Chris was the salesperson, and he was trying to open Roundy's, a supermarket chain in the Midwest. He was trying to open them to buy the food packaging material that we sold. And the buyer was, I think Renee wouldn't talk to him. And one day he got Renee on the phone, and Renee picked up the phone by accident and said, I have to take another call me back tomorrow. But as you can imagine, never took the call. So what Chris did is he sent an email, he confirmed it by calling and said, I'm coming to visit you. But he didn't have an appointment. So he drove a couple hundred miles for the sales call, and now there's a barrier. There's a guard and a barrier, and the guard says, how can I help you? I'm here to see the buyer. So the guard lets him by. Storming the Bastille. He comes to the building. It's a whole building complex. He comes to the building where the buyer's office was, and the receptionist says, can I help you? And he says, yeah, I'm here to see the buyer. So after about an hour, the buyer comes down and says, what are you doing here? And now Chris uses the voice of moral authority. I'm here to solve your problems. What are you doing? We don't have any problems. What are you doing here? We don't have an appointment. I'm here to solve your problems. So they went back and forth. And finally, he showed some of the bold vision materials that we had prepared. And believe it or not, he got a trial run for our product, all because of bold vision, bold behavior. The FedEx case history, this is one of my favorites. The problem was I made a promise when I had my packaging business. There were decorative tins. I had promised that a big client, I earned quite a bit. I must have earned $50,000 to $60,000 a commission from this one client, was going to have a prototype in his trade show booth on a Monday morning. And I selected the artist, and they approved the art, but the artist was slow, and the artwork came in Friday night, and Monday morning was the trade show. Now, in order to take artwork and turn it into a prototype, it had to be color separated. We had to decorate flat metal because it was a metal can, and it had to go to a factory to fabricate it. So I knew of a short run shop in Chicago. I'm in New Jersey, by the way. And I called Drew, the owner of the business. I said, hey, would you bring your team in on Saturday? I'm going to, overnight it to you. I'll pay double, pay overtime, double time. And he agreed. And I sent it by FedEx for Saturday morning delivery, first thing. About 10 o'clock Saturday morning, I get a call from Drew in Chicago saying, Andy, where's the artwork? Well, I did a trace. And guess what? FedEx made a mistake. FedEx made a mistake. They had put it in a container for Monday delivery, but, that wouldn't do me any good. We needed to deliver the finished product on Monday. So I started expediting. And I, got somebody on the phone and I said, yeah, we need this package. I said, you don't understand, sir. The facility is closed. It's in a container with 8,000 packages. We don't turn on the sorting equipment till Monday morning. And I said, I got it. There's nothing you could do. Let's find somebody who can do something. This process went on for 3 or 4 hours. I don't know what got him to act. I did ask, can I speak to Fred Smith, who's the founder of FedEx? They sent 3 people into this container with 8,000 packages. They found my package. They put it on a plane to Chicago. It got there by midnight. I had been communicating with Drew in Chicago, got him to agree to work graveyard shift, midnight to 8 a.m. Sunday morning. They did the color separations. They decorated it. John was 150 miles away. He was the factory general manager. We got him to come in Sunday afternoon. He fabricated the product, and, we had it in the booth Monday morning. So the question is, what would you have done? This is what I consider a do or die approach. Now, I agree that I got lucky. We found somebody who cared enough at FedEx, but as you know, you tend to make your own luck in life. So another way to look at this is, what's your brand? We've talked about your brand in previous seminars. Are you the kind of person who gets things done? That's part of the do or die branding, how people look at you. Now, to close sales faster, right, with a tough budget, a recommendation is you should time pace. Time pacing is an idea that was popularized by 3M in the 1980s when they took this standard. 30% of their profits would come from businesses that didn't exist 5 years ago. They weren't waiting for Scotch tape and Post-it notes to become a buggy whip, which is economics jargon for an obsolete product. They were creating the future. If you're interested in future-oriented strategies, this is a great read, Competing on the Edge. This idea, time pacing, is one of many strategies discussed in the book. And what we're talking about now is, how do you make sales happen faster to hit a tough budget this year? So what are a couple of things you could do to apply do or die to budget? One thing is, you can increase sales to existing customers. You always try to stretch the order to see if there are other things we could add on, either sell more of the same product or cross-sell other products. Depending on what your line is like, you might be able to add 10% to your sales that way. And then, are you asking for warm introductions from big fans, both colleagues within the company and colleagues in other companies? You know, when you're talking to them, when they have a need, there's a sense of urgency. You could use that contact, that magic moment of access, to add on to your sales. Selling stronger. Here's a tactic you could use, or an idea you could use with your sales team. It's a thought question. Get the sales team together and ask this question: what was the boldest behavior you did this week? And as you share these answers, you're going to find over time, people will do bolder and bolder things. The other thing I recommend you do, strongly recommend, is track the PIKs, the payments in kind. This is how we know the prospect is serious. So if it's not a one-call close, what is the prospect doing to show they're engaged and involved in the process? So examples could be, they fill out a credit application, or the buyer introduces you to their boss, or they tour your facility if that's relevant. So these are two key things you could do to sell stronger, and time pace, condense the selling cycle. Now, process is critical. This is your standard sales call. Another thing you could do is have a replicable sales process. 1 to 7 sets up the serious conversation. 8 to 12 is your fact finding. And couple of key questions in your fact finding include, why are we talking? Why now? What were your takeaways? And then finally, when you've discovered the closing conditions, that's a key outcome of your fact finding. The closing conditions, the series of conditions which, when met, result in the sale. In 13 to 18, you manage the opportunity, you prove that you have the solution, and close. Now, just to go back to something I mentioned earlier, step 5 is where you come in with the wisdom, the freebie, the non-self-serving information, which hopefully sets up a willing audience to hear your bold vision. And how do you know that you're doing this well? Step 17 is your PIK, your payment in kind. So here's a 3-step process we're going to discuss to get to urgency faster. Is this an important project? If it's important, is this something you want to do fast track or back burner? This is the fast track technique. This helps convert interest into urgency. So you may be talking to a prospect, but they're going slow about it. So here again are the procedures. First, you ask at the end of a good meeting, what were your takeaways from the meeting? And hopefully it was a great meeting because you set it up well with wisdom and bold vision. So what were your takeaways? Let's say the prospect says, I got to get faster delivery. I got it. You want to know more about faster delivery. Great. Do you want to do this on a fast track basis or a back burner basis? Now, what you're hoping to do is, you've earned the right to the fast track, so then you go for the PIK. Then we should really do this next. We should have an all hands on deck meeting next week with your team and my team. This is the fast track procedure. This will condense the selling cycle and help you hit a tough budget. Now, self-image is really important here. Why don't we do some of these bold vision, bold behavior things? It's because selling has a bad rap from books, works, plays like Death of a Salesman. And very often salespeople have internalized these images and they won't do the doing they need to do. They won't do the bold vision, bold behavior. Now, this is a sad thing to me because in my mind, salespeople are heroes. I use as my metaphor here, Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces. Campbell studied hero myths in hundreds of cultures over thousands of years to track the journey of the hero. And I say salespeople are heroes. Let's look at a classic myth. It's, 500 years ago, Middle Ages. This is a myth. A fire-breathing dragon has moved into the neighborhood and is killing people and cattle. So after a certain point, the king, the queen, the vizier, the mayor calls all the people into the center square of the town and says, hey, we got a problem. Somebody's got to go out and kill that fire-breathing dragon. And if they do it and they cut off the head and they bring it back, you get half my wealth. And if you're the marrying type, you can marry my son or daughter. Well, if you look closely, most of those people, their heads are downcast, they're ashamed, they're shuffling their feet. But in the typical myth, one person says, I'll go. And they go out, they have all kinds of adventures, they meet friends, they meet enemies. They're worthy heroes, so they get magical weapons like the cloak of invisibility or the sword of invincibility. And finally, they're facing the dragon. They have a climactic fight, slay the dragon, cut off the head, bring it back to civilization. And the key question in these stories is, where do they become a hero? Many people would answer, well, it's when you get the reward. But the consistent answer in cultures going back thousands of years, it's when the person raises their hand and says, I'll go. Because they're facing uncertainty. They're facing danger. And isn't that something we do in selling every day? We're facing uncertainty. We're facing rejection. We're facing radio silence. We're facing an adversarial scenario. That's why we're heroes. But we face different dragons. We don't face fire-breathing dragons. We face dragons of the mind, right? We face buyers who are ignorant, they're biased, they're lazy, they're friendly with the other salesperson and they don't want to talk to us, they're complacent, and perhaps as much as anything, they have a closed mind. And what makes us real heroes is we open the closed mind. That's what we do for a living. If you think back to the grieving cycle, when they go from closed mind to open exploration, that's what a salesperson does. We open the closed mind. That's why we're heroes. And how do we do it? The prospects on a fall summit, the core of selling is they're looking down and we help them look up and see there's a higher summit of well-being nearby and we can bring them to it. That's the essence of persuasion. The prospect's looking down, we help them look up, and we bring them to a higher summit of well-being. So what are some metrics to watch to gauge this? Warm introductions, PIKs, payments in kind, challenging the prospect's thinking, especially as needed, escalating, going higher in the food chain, building opportunity in the pipeline, which is qualified by PIKs. In other words, how do we know it's real? PIK. And now increase the closing ratio with bold vision, bold behavior, and reduce the selling cycle with bold vision, bold behavior. Without metrics, it's hard to measure and manage success. But without the quest, without this greater vision, higher purpose, no soul, danger of burnout. Well, we all know that Rome wasn't built in a day, so we're almost at the end of today's webinar. You might want to think about your takeaways, if any, for a minute or so. And we're going to have questions in a moment. If you have any questions for me about the seminar or our program, here's our email address. A reminder, our next seminar on May 15th at 1:30 is how to defend your key accounts from competition. What can pure selling do? So now we have a few minutes for questions. Please send them in the chat. And if you want information about meeting a tough sales budget, improving your innovation, our book, Innovate Now, We also offer a free 30-minute consulting session. Let me know, and also let me know what you want covered in future webinars. All right, we have a question here. Are you saying that taking a do-or-die attitude will always get you the result you want? No, I was unclear if I gave that idea. Taking a do-or-die attitude all the time gives you a shot at getting what you want. People could always be irrational, and, the prospect could be in a multi-year contract or what have you. But do or die will get you on the playing field. What about balance of life, Andy? Isn't this do or die thing too stressful? I think it's a really good question. Selling's not for everybody, or at least not proactive selling. I know I've been doing this for over 40 years, and I think I have balance of life by and large, but it can be intense in time. So it's a valid point that you raise. Which principle that you discussed is the most important here? Well, I would have to say, if you would just pick one thing from today, it's bold vision, bold behavior. Were you bold enough in your vision? Were you bold enough in your behavior? All right. Are you saying that winning with a best efforts approach means they were really ready to buy? Okay, so what this means is, sometimes we don't put in a lot of effort and we close a sale, even a new customer, because the prospect was ready to buy and all you had to do was show up. So that's my general experience. I would love to hear from you if your experience has been different, which means you're in a cutthroat competitive scenario, entrenched, you're in entrenched competition, and somehow you win with a best efforts basis. Well, I think we're going to call it a day here. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions, reach out to Andy G at urgencybasedselling.net. Have a great month. Hope to see you again next month. Bye now.